What's good? What's good, guys? Your boy, Mr. Old School Ryder. Come back at you one more again. I have a very special guest on the line. I have one of the legends in the literary world on outside the urban genre. I have, by the way, this is the Writers Book Club, of course. And I have Mr. actually Reverend Burton Barr Jr. on the line. What's going on, sir?
Okay, how you doing? I'm glad to be your guest this evening.
We do appreciate you, sir. We're just going to talk about a little bit about yourself and some other things. Then we'll go from there. So I'm gonna let you have the floor for a moment, Reverend Burton. So tell us about yourself.
Okay, I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and I was there until I started preaching when I was called into the ministry when I was 16 years old. I was licensed and ordained when I was 17, but then at age 20 was when I left the church, got involved in some criminal activities because of the drugs that I was doing. I got strung out on heroin, cocaine, and crack, and I was doing a lot of other drugs, and that led me to a criminal lifestyle. Uh, where I'd been arrested more than 30 times. I don't know exactly how many. I just know it's more than 30. Because it was one time that I gotten arrested. I said, man, I'm tired of going to jail. I wonder how many times I've been arrested, and I started counting. When I got to 30, I stopped counting. So that's why I say I've been arrested more than 30 times. I lived in a lot of different cities around the country, and finally God got my attention and brought me back to Him. And then that was in 1991 when I moved to St. Louis to get away from the environment that I was at in Chicago. And so I got back into church, and God's been using me in prison ministry. I've been doing prison ministry for almost 30 years. I'm also doing the opioid overdose prevention education at the jails here, the city jail here, and a lot of other things, trying to keep people from making the same mistakes that I made, and then those who are incarcerated, let them know that they don't have to let where they are dictate who they are. And so I love what I do, and that's why I do it so much and so often. I just love it.
Oh yes, I can tell by the sound of your voice you're very passionate what you're doing, and also you had a real calling as well. We do appreciate that. You're not basically doing from the money. You basically got called to do it. That's why we
Yes.
do appreciate it.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
So, and St. Louis is actually going to be one of those cities. Hopefully I'm gonna visit here sometime in 22. But I just want to kind of check it out for myself, look at the historical stuff and things like that. But so what you're saying with the change of environment kind of help you with your sobriety as well?
Yes. I knew that if I was going to change uh, my lifestyle and get away from the drugs, I had to get away from the people that I was associated with. I knew that I could not just be with the same people, and try not to do what we had all been doing at that time. I got to the point when I was in Chicago where I'd always heard, well, when I was growing up, I'd always heard my parents tell me people to stay away from. He said, stay away from so and so, stay away from so and so. And I had become so and so. I'd become the person that parents would tell their children, to stay away from. You don't want to, you don't want to be like Bob. That was my nickname. You want to be like him. And I got to the point, where I knew that the only places that I was welcome at was um, around other criminals, so to speak, or drug users, or people who were living that lifestyle. There were even some churches that I wasn't welcome at. Well, because that was the climate at that time, where some churches back in those days were not very welcoming to street people. I'm glad that that is changed for the most part anyway. But again, everyone that I knew in Chicago was living the same lifestyle that I was living. So I came to St. Louis. I knew that there was drugs and all of that stuff here too. But I had decided to stay away from that crowd. I wasn't going to seek out that crowd. Matter of fact, I came here. I got two jobs. Not just one. I got two jobs because I was determined to make it. That time I tried several times before, and to no avail. But and this time God, with God's help and help of family and support group, I was able to overcome the addictions that I had and stay away from the criminal element and that. And so again, that's why I do this ministry. And it was a person that I remember what started my change was when I was in Cook County Jail in Chicago, getting ready to go to prison on a 2-year bid. Um, and I never would go to church when I was in jail, mainly for two reasons. Number one, I thought I'd done too much wrong for God to ever forgive me, and the other reason was I didn't want to appear weak before the other inmates because I didn't want folks saying, he was all tough and bad when he was running the streets, and now he come to jail, run down to the church, So I didn't want to hear that. But it was one preacher, Reverend Jerry Hodges. He's gone on to be with the Lord now, but he convinced me to go down to the church one evening. He said, "Hey man, brother, why don't you come on down to the Bible study? God got a word for you." And I went down there, and I sat in the back halfway paying attention. But then he said something that struck me. He said, "I bet a lot of y'all wonder why you're here in this jail." He said, "The reason some of y'all are here is because when you were running the street, you couldn't hear God. God couldn't get your attention. So sometimes what he does, he just allows you to be put someplace to slow you down so you can hear him. And he does that because he loves you." And then he said that no matter what you've done, no matter what you become, God still loves you. And I still remember that was back in 1986 when when that had happened. And I still remember that. It's part of me, and that's the same message that I give to the men and the women who are incarcerated. That is, don't let where you are dictate who you are. You're better than this, um, and God loves you. No matter what you've done, no matter what you become. Uh, don't give up on yourself. Enough people don't give up on you. Just don't give up on yourself.
Oh yeah, that's very, very true. Yeah, sometimes you have to. I forgot what passage this was. Please forgive me, but sometimes you have to encourage yourself.
Yes.
I mean, then pretty
Yeah.
much God's gonna, take the rest. As long as you encourage yourself. I mean, it'll all work itself out. You just can't be down on yourself. You pretty much miss your blessing when you're down on yourself, focusing on the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do what you need to do, and it's gonna work itself out at the end, of course. But what was your so you came in St. Louis? You said 1986.
No, I came to St. Louis in 1991. Well, I had come to St. Louis a few times before. Um, my when my parents migrated or came from the South, when the families rather came from the South, my father's side of the family went to Chicago. My mother's side of the family went in St. Louis here. So that's why, as children, my brother and I were always going back and forth, to see my family who was here in St. Louis, my grandparents on my mother's side, and my sister and all of them. But we lived in Chicago with my father's side of the family. But then I remember that first time I came here to live here was in, I think it was 1977. I had gotten out of the Marines in '70. Well, I was asked to leave the Marines, and with a bad conduct discharge, they sent me to Leavenworth. And then when I got out, I was I was smuggling cocaine and marijuana from California to Chicago, Chicago area. And one time during one of my trips, I decided I was going to keep the money and the drugs. And so that's when I decided, okay, it might be best I do not go back to California. So I stayed in Chicago. Uh, and then I got into trouble there, and a judge had told me to, if I ever come back to this courtroom again, to bring my toothbrush. And so the night before I was supposed to go to court, um, I I came to St. Louis, because I wasn't ready to go back to jail there. You know, my my cousin, well, my mother had been visiting me here, and then they brought my mother home to Chicago. When they were getting ready to go back to St. Louis, I got in the car and said, "Man, I'm going with y'all." So, and so I stayed here until the statute of limitations ran out, and then I went back to Chicago. But then I ripped off some drug dealers there. Well, I owed drug dealers. That's why I came back to St. Louis. Then I got in more trouble here, and the police told me to get out of St. Louis and don't come back.
Oh man.
And so I couldn't go back to Chicago. So then I went to Detroit, where my ex-wife and my daughter, my children lived. And so I stayed there, and then I ripped off some drug dealers. I don't know why I kept doing that, man. But so I had to leave Detroit. And so, but I left with enough money to pay the folk off for Chicago that I owed. So then I went back there. But when I came back this last time, I came back, to change my life. And so that was in 1991, November of 1991. So uh, it's been, last month was 30 years ago. And so I've done well. I've slipped a few times, and so, but every time I slip, I didn't, just give up, and go back to that lifestyle. Because something my father told me before. He said, "Son, just because you slip and fall in the mud, don't just lay there and wallow in it. Get up, clean yourself off, and keep on stepping." He said, "If you fall down again, get up again. If you fall down again, get up again. If you keep falling down, keep getting up." So that's what I did, and that's what I tell people. Just because you slip, mess up, or something, the brothers and sisters in jail, the ones who are fighting addictions and stuff, if they slip or something, don't just quit. Just start over again. Get up. And if you keep falling down, keep getting up.
Oh yeah, I like that message. Just don't give up.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the turning point in your life. You pretty much just got tired of running. Just say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and do this for myself and my family. This running is getting old and tiring. Is that pretty
Right.
much correct?
Yeah. And it was 19 when I went to prison the second time. I went to Joliet in Illinois, and this was I remember my daughter. My daughter was 15 years old at the time, and she had always lived in Detroit with her mother, and I lived somewhere everywhere, because I was always trying to stay one step ahead of the police. And I wrote her a letter. I wrote her a letter. And because folk, when you go to jail, man, you write letters to folk, hoping you get some mail back. I wrote my daughter a letter, and then she wrote me back, and she said, "Dad, why it's the only time I hear from you is when you were in jail?" And that messed me up, man, because I didn't realize that at the time, but it was true, and that kind of messed me up, you know, and so. And that's another thing that I encourage, especially the men, who got children. Look, you got children out there. They need you, uh, and you got other siblings. You got to be there for your family, which I wasn't, because I made a lot of mistakes in my life. But I thank God, that we have a good relationship now. She lives in Phoenix now. I talk all the time. She comes here all the time, and I go there. But then learn from my mistakes. Um, I would get out of jail and I'd go back again. Then I get out of jail, I go back. I even made a joke of it. One time I left, I told them, to keep my cell ready.
Oh man.
Yeah. But it was that one time. I hope you don't mind if I tell you this.
Oh, you got the floor. You got the you
And,
got the floor, Reverend. You got the floor.
okay, it was that time in November of 1991. I went to a drug house in Chicago, over on 15th Street. It was a Courtway building. People don't know what a Courtway building is. It's a large building that has a lot of apartments in it on different sides, and so it was it's almost like a drug mall. If you want heroin, you go to this apartment. You want cocaine, you go to that apartment. You want crack, you go to that apartment, and so on. And on Sunday mornings between 9 a.m. and noon, they had a drug sale. You buy one bag, you get a second bag for half price. And I went and I got a 1-in-1, a bag of heroin, a bag of cocaine. And I come out and I was heading home, but directly across the street from the drug house was a church. And I was walking past that church, and they had the doors open, uh, and it was kind of drizzling outside. And I was walking past, I heard the sermon that was being preached. It was the story of the prodigal son. I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but it was the prodigal son, and I was familiar with it, because I had preached that sermon before, before I had left the church, uh, and so I sat there on the steps. Church said I wouldn't go inside. Uh, there's another story behind that, was why I would, something happened before at the church, and I swore my mother I'd never step foot in another church as long as I lived, so I wouldn't go in. I sat on those steps in the rain, and I was listening to that sermon. And then I was saw myself as that prodigal son, the lost son, the one who had walked away from his father, and to live his own life and do, what he wanted to do, uh, and he ended up, all messed up and stuff. And then I realized that I was that prodigal son, that Jesus was talking about. It was me. And I sat there, and then I started crying, and it's when they say your life flashed before you. It was like that. All of the stuff that I had done, the stuff that I'd done, like when my father was killed, and I was, when I was, when he was in a coma before he had died. Instead of going to the hospital to see him, I was running con on people that knew him, saying, my aunt needed this, I needed that, and to get money so I can get drugs. And that's how I found out my father died. I was trying to run con on one of the people that said, that Reverend Richard told me Reverend Barr died. That's how I
Oh
found out
man.
my father. That kind of stuff, and what I'd done to my daughter, and I ripped off, my ex-wife, when she was having, she had money to feed our children, and I stole that so I can get drugs, and what I done to my father, and all of the con games I run on folks, and people I got strung out on drugs, and now women went prostitution because I got them strung out. All of that stuff was coming back on me, and I was sitting there crying, and I just said, Lord, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for this life that I've been living, to please forgive me. And I got rid of those drugs that I had, and that's when I decided, okay, it's over. I got to quit. I got to quit. I can't live like this anymore. And so, and then that's when I decided that I had to leave Chicago, because, and I talk about in my last book, you got to do what you got to do. Yeah, and sometimes you might have to get away from your family. You got to get away from your friends. You got to do whatever you got to do to get away from that. And so that's when I came to St. Louis. Again, I slipped a few times, but like my father said, when that thing, every time I slipped, I got back up.
Oh yeah, like you said before, once you slip, just don't stay down there. You got to pick back up, get back up.
Yeah.
I mean, you give up, you always gonna wonder like, man, I should have did this and this, and then it'd be like, it ain't. I'm not gonna say it's too late, but you pretty much killed a lot of time just worrying about it and thinking about what you should have done. Just go ahead and try to do it if you can. You know, depend. No, it doesn't matter what you're trying to do. Just get back up and just do it.
Right. And I was thinking about, the life that I had. At one point I was manager of Woolworths. Well, they're not around anymore, but I was one of the first managers of Woolworths. I was manager of Radio Shack before. I was a sergeant in the Marines, and I was working for another time. I was working for one of the first black congressmen, United States congressmen in Chicago, and I was one thing after another. I kept messing all of those jobs, all those opportunities up, and then I'd gone from and plus I was a sought after young preacher, 17 years old. People wanted to hear me preach, 17, 18, 19 years old and stuff. And I was preaching around the Midwest, and I messed all of that up, and I think that was probably one of the reasons that I got so deep the drugs that I was doing, because I was thinking back to what I used to be and what I could have been, and all that was messed up, So then I was just out there lost, uh, and a story that I tell stories. My former pastor called me the storyteller. A lot of them are true of life, my past stuff that happened. And I talk about it in the sermons and stuff. Was a friend of mine who lived across the street from me when we were kids, named Chuck. He had a dog named Champ. I hated that dog. I'm a dog lover, but I hated that dog. And one day, Chucky was going to the corner store. We were walking down to the corner store, and he had Champ with him on the leash. And when he got to the store, he handed me the leash. Asked me to hold Champ till he came out. I said, okay. And I like I said, man, I hated that dog, but I took his leash, and I think Champ knew I hated him, because as soon as Chucky disappeared in that store, Champ looked me dead in my eyes and started growling, and I knew I was in trouble. And so I took off running, and Champ was right behind me, running down the street. I was running fast as I could, and then I heard some people were laughing, and some other people yelling something to me, but I couldn't hear because I was too busy trying to get away from that crazy dog. And so I finally heard somebody say, "Let go of the leash. Let go of the leash." It had dawned on me, I'm trying to get away from Champ, but the whole time I'm still holding on to his leash. So then when I finally dropped the leash, let go of the leash, Champ stopped chasing me. He went back down to where Chucky was. And that's what's happening to so many of us. We're trying to get away from situations that we are into, but we're holding on to the leash. A lot of people are still dealing with drugs, and they can't quit because they're holding on to the leash. Some people in a bad relationship, but they're still holding on to the leash. But it's just so God will tell them to let go of the leash, let go of this stuff, just let it go.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's a good analogy about things. People want to hold on to stuff. It just keep chasing you, it keep following you. Just let it go.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of dog that was, but he sounded like a killer, man. I want no parts of that dog.
Was, but I just did not like that dog. Nobody in the neighborhood liked him. She wasn't just me. None of my friends liked Champ.
Oh yeah, I have my wow. I mean, I have my share of dog chases. I mean, lucky I didn't get hurt for real, but sometimes I trip up. They come to you, they just give up. They be so tired of running. Like, you know what? This wasn't even worth it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they go back and just drink some water or get something to eat. They just give up.
Right.
God, dog. But let's see. So you pretty much was preaching ever since you was a child. You pretty much a child prodigy then.
I was preaching when I was a little kid, when I I was like 9 or 10 years old. When I was, matter of fact, I started my own church in my mother's kitchen. It was, like when school was out in the summertime. I forgot. I think, like I said, I think I was 9 or 10 years old. I started my own church. I was the pastor, and my little brother Ralph was my church member, and my dog Rex. They were my two church members, Ralph and Rex. And so Ralph didn't want to sit there and listen to me preach and stuff. He wanted to go outside and play, but I was bigger than him. So he had to sit there. And my dog Rex, he sit there too. And then one time, when my mother came home from work, Ralph told on me. So my church split. Ralph was, he didn't have to sit and listen to me preach no more, but I still had Rex, my dog. And so Rex quit too when I tried to baptize him in the bathtub one day, so I didn't have no church no more.
Oh man. I heard stories of, some people that was preaching they baptized a dog or something when they was younger, and it just never works out. Dogs don't like water like that.
Yeah, shoot.
I mean, they'll end up putting you in the water, man. That dog.
Shoot, matter of fact, whenever Rex did get in the house, he wouldn't go nowhere near that bathroom because he remembered when I tried to baptize him. Shoot. But and even when I was in my addiction, my drug addiction, and when I was in jail, I remember it was a guy that was there. In the Cook County Jail over Division 1, Division 2, it was like a dorm-like situation. And when I first walked into Division 2, this guy, Coach Cheese, he had somebody up against the wall, beating him and stuff. And I said, okay, I'm gonna stay away from this dude. I don't know what had happened. I found out later it was Coach Cheese put a shot call at one of the gangs there. So I just stayed away from him. And then one day, it was getting close to my birthday, and I, was just laying on my bunk. I had the cover over my head. It was daytime, but then, because the lights was on and bright and stuff, and I was kind of disgusted, with myself and stuff, because I'm getting ready to spend another birthday in jail. And then I heard somebody coming, walking down, and they were talking, they were getting closer to my bunk, and then they were talking, and I recognized, boy, it was Coach Cheese. That's the guy that I'm trying to stay away from. It was him and one of his lieutenants, and then they stopped right at my bunk, and then I heard the other guy say, who is that? And then Coach Cheese said, that's just some old preacher that's running from God. And then they went on and walked away. And that messed me up because, I used to be a preacher. And I'm wondering, how Coach Cheese know I used to be a preacher? And then there was one time, some weeks later, I the gang members, some of the guards were in gangs too, and they would bring the gang members food, at night. And I wasn't in the gang, so I didn't even try to get none. So then Coach Cheese just said, hey, preacher, you hungry? I said, yeah. And so they, Coach Cheese had somebody, to give me a sandwich and stuff. And so he just gave me the name, Preacher. And so one time I was talking to him, I said, hey, man, how'd you know I was a preacher? How you know I used to be a preacher? He said, man, anybody can look at you and tell you you're a preacher. And so that name stuck with me, Preacher. And when I left there and got to the prison out in Joliet and then in Centralia, that was my name, Preacher. And then even when I was out, when I moved to a different neighborhood, some of the dealers and drug users and stuff, I told them my name was Book. That was my nickname, I was known as for years. And then the guy said, man, now you need a nickname. He said, I'm going to call you Preacher. That's your name now, Preacher. and I want, how come everybody, want to give me the name preacher, you know? And then another friend of mine that I used to do drugs with, we went to his cousin's house, a young lady. We got upstairs getting ready to do drug to shoot up, and she looked at me and said, "You look like a preacher," And then that was just following me. Preacher, just people were calling me preacher, and it just stuck. And that was just, I guess it was God letting me know that was uh, that I was still his preacher. My father, he used to always say, "Son, you can't live just any kind of life. You can't live the way you living." He said, "You're a preacher." And then he said that so many times, and finally I said, "Dad, I ain't no preacher no more. I quit." And then he said, "Son, when God calls you to preach, you always gonna be a preacher." He said,
Mm.
"You just a hoodlum preacher." And so that's how I got the name for the book, The Hoodlum Preacher.
Sure, y'all got that's a classic, man. We're not gonna lie to you, man. I picked it up like back in the day. I don't know where the book is at right now, but y'all remember, reading the book. I think roughly around 2006, 2007, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
It's
right
been
around there.
around for a while. And also, if I'm not mistaken, you had like a short documentary online with this particular book as well, correct?
Yeah, the documentary is online from the latest book, 121,
Oh yeah,
Overcoming Drug Addiction.
121.
Yeah, 121, Overcoming Drug Addiction by Faith. 121 is a reference to Psalm 121. And that's because, my father came to me one day, when I was deep in my addiction, and he had a Bible in his hand. And he didn't start preaching at me or anything. He just opened up the Bible, handed it to me, said, "Son, when you every day read this scripture before you leave home every day." And that song, that scripture was Psalm 121. And I did. I read it, uh, every morning, before I left home. Sometimes I was so high, I was so drunk, I couldn't even see the words. And I have, my lady friend who was with me, "Hey, read that to me," you know. But so that's why I titled this, 121, Overcoming Drug Addiction by Faith.
That's a perfect title, man, for the story. It's real life.
Yeah. Uh,
Wow.
and after I wrote The Hoodlum Preacher, a lot of people were asking me, when was I going to write, a follow up or a sequel or something, and I wasn't even planning on doing that. And people will be asking me, they asked me how did I get off of drugs, and was I going to write a book about how to get off of drugs and that kind. And I let them know, it's not that easy to, 'cause, well, I'll put it this way: what worked for me might not work for you. Uh, and what works for one person, it's no cutter thing. But in the book, I do, I point out, some stuff that helped me, uh, and hopefully it'll help some others as well. Uh, and like my father, as you see, I talk about my father a lot because I got a lot from him. Uh, he always said, "Son, it's three steps of doing anything. First of all, you got to want to do it, and that was the main thing. Some people think they want to do something, but if you don't really, what I mean when what I say, you have to want to do it. You have to really want it with all every fiber in your being. You have to want it. You have to really want it. Um, and after you decide that you really want to do it, then you got to try to do it. Okay, and then finally, just do it. Those were the three steps my father told me: want to do it, try to do it, and do it.
I like that, man. Three steps.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So the way that you do things may not be necessary. It's going to work the same for somebody else. You pretty much may have to modify it, or
Yes.
maybe you just kind of do something different to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
so
sorry.
let
Go
me
ahead.
ask you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but how often do you go into the prisons or the jails to to talk to people?
I go now once a week, every Friday. At one point, I was at the Justice Center. I don't know whether you saw all the stuff that was going on at the St. Louis City Justice Center a few months ago, the riots, and they were breaking out the windows and they were doing all that. And it was on the news quite a bit. I think it was not just on the news here in St. Louis, but it was on national news because there were some people from around the country that knew that that's where I was at, you know. A couple of times a week they would call and make sure I was okay. But I still go there once a week, at least once a week. It was a lot of men and women who were overdosing on fentanyl, and so they asked me to come in, you know, and do the opioid overdose education training for the inmates. And so I was doing that twice a week. I go to the one of the state prisons every month, and then sometimes I just go and to one of the jails, and people who've been asking, inmates who've been asking, you know, to see me. I go and counsel them, and so I go as often as I can. Answer your question, I go at least once a week. Uh, and some places I go once a month, and some places I just go just to, instead of doing the church service or whatever, I just go and visit one of the inmates and talk with them, see what they want to talk to me about.
Oh yeah, I love that dedication. I know sometimes at churches they have like different people kind of like coming in and out doing
Hmm.
I think they call it prison ministries. I think yours is
Yes.
called the drug. What you call it
It,
again? You
it
said the drug.
it was the overdose, uh, drug overdose prevention education. But it's still, as far as I'm concerned, it's still prison ministry, you know, because just like Jesus said that the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, you know, but I've come, you know, that you might have life and you might have it more abundantly, and nobody can have abundant life if they are bound to a drug, heroin or cocaine or crack or something like that. And there's so many people overdose, and it's so much drugs in jails and drugs in prisons. Even back in 19, I mean, it's always been that way. When I was in Leavenworth back in 1975, 76, the guy in the cell next to mine was selling cocaine then. You know. But now when fentanyl came up, you know, that's what started killing folk. You know, because it was a
That
lot
was
of.
pretty much the game changer recently.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And people started cutting heroin with fentanyl, and then that was killing folk. And then it's got to the point now where people think they're buying heroin, but they're not. They're buying fentanyl. And so they're overdosing and dying. The new stats came out that over 100,000 men and women died from drug overdoses in this country in the last 12 months. More than 100,000, and many of them were black people. You know, um, because that is prevalent in our neighborhoods and our communities. A lot of people in our communities are hurting, you know. They really don't see any hope. They have no hope. I mean, they get up and they see the world that they living in, and it's full of poverty and stuff, and so they just do what they can, you know, to try um, uh, 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 to get away from that reality that's going on. So they do and drugs is all around them. Uh, and I know I'm not saying that all black people, you know, do drugs because it's not. But it's just too many of us that got trapped into that for one reason or another. Some people got involved in drugs uh, um, because of prescriptions, and the pharmaceutical company was taking advantage of folk, putting out stuff in communities and talking about it's not addictive, and some of the crooked doctors were over prescribing these opioids and stuff, and then people got strung out on them, you know, and then when they had to crack down on that, and then people can't get the drugs that they have gotten hooked on, that the doctors prescribe for them. So now then they start going to the streets, getting heroin off the streets, and then uh, and this is a story I remember I read. I did a lot of reading when I was in prison. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, but another story which I read was about Lucky Luciano, who was a crime boss, in I think 1920s and 30s, and he had one of his right hand men had come to him with the idea of trafficking heroin. And Luciano was against it. He said that he didn't want to. I mean, doing heroin, that would turn the public against him, and bring a lot of pressure on them. And so Lansky had said that uh, he knew how they can make money off of the heroin and not worry about, the feedback, the blowback, all that. All we got to do is just put it in the Negro neighborhood and let the Negroes sell it to each other. And that's what happened. And then, they inundated our neighborhoods, with the heroin, and then in Vietnam, during Vietnam era, that's when I was in the Marines. People were coming back from Vietnam, strung out, and then they bring in heroin back, and then that was more stuff that devastated our neighborhoods, and then now you see liquor stores almost on every corner, and so and then they our neighborhoods are being saturated with drugs, liquor stores, and guns, uh, and so people are asking, how come there's so much crime and stuff. Um, I'm not gonna say that they had planned it that way, but it's happening.
Yeah, pretty much you're absolutely right about that. We're not going to, like you said before, the fight is kind of fixed to a certain extent when the rules are kind of swayed in a certain direction, you know. But yeah, I know
Yeah.
even some people, I even know some people in my family, they've off and on been trying to get off for like a long time.
Hmm.
With this fentanyl stuff going on right now, I'm trying to, tell certain people, hey, this is not the old school stuff you had back in the day. This stuff can, I think they said some fentanyl, like a grain of rice, can actually get you up out of here.
Yeah. 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 I'm in St. Louis, of course, and uh, Missouri is number 17 in the country as far as drug overdose deaths. I'll put it that way. And St. Louis is number one in the state of Missouri,
Oh
and it's
wow.
and our neighborhoods are the ones that are the neighborhoods that are mostly affected. And so, yeah, every chance I get, I try to talk to folks, and people listen to me because, when I'm in the jail, I talk to them, and let them know that, uh, where you are, I've been there, and so and God delivered me. I've been blessed since then. I'm in a position where years ago I never thought I would be. I just turned 73 couple of months ago. At one point, I didn't think I was going to live to be 30, and I didn't care. It was that, and it's other people like that. I was a high school dropout. I had a bad conduct discharge from the Marines. I had a prison record. People were saying I was unemployable, and all of that. I was just tired of that lifestyle. But then now I have a bachelor and a master's degree. I've written 5 books. God's been using me to talk to folk, even like you. And that's not bragging on myself. I'm bragging on God, because I'm nothing special. And I let people know that, it ain't nothing special about me. If I, if I can do it, if I can do it for me, he can do it for you too, you know. I try to give people hope, and that's what a lot of people do not have. They don't have hope, And if people can have hope and see that there is a way, then it's not going to be easy. It wasn't easy for me. I remember the time, man. I was so tired of shooting dope that I took my needle syringe and went out on the back porch and I threw it in the alley. You know, alley's full of dirt. I had dirt piles back there. I threw that needle and syringe in the alley. And then, shoot, 20 minutes later, I was on the alley on my hands and knees with one of those disposable cigarette lighters looking for that syringe, you
Oh
know,
man.
because they weren't as available as they are now, you know. So it was rough. It was rough. Even now, when I go to the doctor and they, for a doctor's appointment, they have to draw blood, you know, for something. They can't get it out of my arms, you know, because I burnt all those veins up. They have to, you know, go in my hand, you know. It hurts, shoot, you know, but that's because of the choices I made long time ago. And, you know, I tell people sin has consequences. Um, just because you change, you give your life to God, that don't mean that everything is going to change right then. You know, I'm not going to be strung out on drugs no more. Police ain't going to mess with me no more. I'm not going to jail no more. You know, even though you got warrants on you, no, you know, but then you got to work through some stuff. And it's not always easy, but if you decide, you know, that you want to be successful in this thing, you know, you got to work at it. Just like anything else, you got to work at it.
Oh yes, sir. That is correct on that. You have to put your work into it. You're right about that.
Yeah.
Most
My
definitely.
my grandparents had an old piano in their house. Nobody played it. It was there for well, it wasn't really decoration because it was old and raggedy. But my little brother and I wanted to learn how to play piano. And we finally talked our mother into learning to have piano lessons. And the piano teacher was going to come one Saturday. And we were ready. I mean, we made out a list of songs that we wanted the teacher to teach us how to play that day. You know, we had about, you know, maybe 10 songs, you know, that we heard, you know, on the radio in church or something, a list. And so the lesson was going to be an hour. So we thought that she'd be able to teach us how to play these songs, you know, at least 10 songs, you know, in that hour, you know. And so when the teacher got there, I gave her the list of songs that I wanted her to teach us how to play. But instead, you know, she just put the list down on the table somewhere and started, you know, this some kind of exercise she had us doing for the whole hour, you know. And then she said for us um, to practice, do that exercise every day for an hour. You know, and then she left. You know, me and Ralph, we looked at each other like, what happened? You know, we, we thought we was gonna be playing some songs by now, you know. And so shoot, I quit. No more piano lessons. You know, I quit. And so, you know, like before then was, you know, like the only song we was able to play was Mary Had a Little Lamb and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, you know. So but we thought we was gonna be able to play some real songs. And so because of that, after we quit, right now, even today, all I know how to play is Mary Had a Little Lamb and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, you know, because we didn't want to put in the work to learn how to play for real. You know, we thought that we shoot an hour and that was it. We'd be able to play like Mozart or something, or, or something. But anyway, well, Mozart, no, not him, you know, some black players. But anyway, uh,
Oh yeah.
yeah, but shoot, that now I still can't play nothing but Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and Mary Had a Little Lamb with one
Sure,
finger.
I can't even do that, Reverend. I'm not ain't gonna lie to you. I mean, I tried to do the piano thing back in the day myself. I want to do the music part, but it just never worked out. Of course,
Hmm.
we couldn't afford the instruments, but you know, some people I know how the piano. All day I can do is go do do do. That's all I can do. You know, like the end
Yeah.
of the keys, like then run your fingers all the way down. That's all I can do.
Hmm.
But with the
Yeah.
piano, yeah, it takes a very you gotta have a skill
Hmm.
with them fingers to do it. Yeah, some people just go and just start playing all kind of stuff. But yeah, you gotta. That's one of the things you gotta put your time and dedication into.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with life. You got to put in your time and dedication in life. You know, if you just like Michael Jordan, my favorite basketball player, because he was with the Bulls, not from Chicago. You know, he when I hear about how the work that he put in and the work that Kobe Bryant put in all those times, that's how they got to be as good as they are, as good as they were, because they put the work in. But there's too many of us, me included, didn't want to put no work in. We get discouraged because don't I don't want to do all that. So and it's the same thing. Uh, as far as addiction, you got to put the work in. You got to put the work. You got to decide that this is you don't want to do that anymore. I'm tired of hurting people. I'm tired of doing what I'm tired of living the way that I'm living. I'm tired of going to jail. Man, was I tired of going to jail, you know. And it feels good, now when I see a police car around, I ain't got to worry about it. Well, because I always had warrants on me, you know. It feels good that I don't have to worry about that anymore. Uh, but
Oh yeah, yeah, you're most definitely right about that. Actually, I mean, I never went to a certain extent. Like, I mean, I just had like regular traffic tickets and like small silly stuff. But when I got put on in Louisiana like last week,
hmm
the state trooper say I was went 15 over. And I looked at my dashboard. I'm like, really? That's not even possible. But I figured it out now myself. But he was running my license. He was taking like forever. I'm like, what's he gonna find?
yeah,
I went to jail before for like mistaken identity for like a couple of weeks, of course. But we got it resolved. But that was rough.
yeah,
I mean, my name happened to match up with somebody else. That was like way like in the 2000 something or whatever. But yeah, these computers ain't like it is right now. If it was, they would have just matched it up. Like, hey, this not you. And I gave them my license. Hey, this is you. And I'm like, no, it's not.
yeah. And that was around the time, when they put those computers in the cars, man, that's cheating. It's really time for me to quit now, because whenever I got stopped, I was banking on, because they ask you, have you ever been arrested? And I say no, because then on way to find out, they take me to the police station, then put me in a computer. They got computers in their cars now, So I said, man, so sure, when all that came up, I was glad that was about the time that I changed my life and got out of that life. Because I remember one
Mm.
time here in St. Louis, they took me to the police and they asked me, I'm sitting there handcuffed, to the chair, and they asked me, have I ever been arrested? I said no. And cause I ain't gonna tell them myself. Y'all gotta do your job and find out. Cause I ain't gonna tell you.
Yeah, you got to put the work
And
in
they,
there to find out yourself.
yeah, so they put my info on the computer, and at that time they had those printers, those long sheets and stuff. That thing kept going on and on and
Oh my
on
goodness.
and on and on. The cop turned around, and looked at me. I looked off like. But anyway, shoot, now we got them computers in the car. Shoot.
My goodness. Yeah, I know. Well, I was worried about even back in the day. Some people in my family and some ex people I know, just used to give my name. I'm like, why I'm getting pulled over? I didn't do nothing. Some of my little cousins and other people I used to deal with, I did not notice till like later. Some people just giving my name because I was clean,
uh-huh.
so they'll get let go. But if they actually get put, get brought in, some of that stuff came up. I'm like, no, I've never been arrested before. Like, hey, it shows it right here. I'm like, no, it's not me.
Yeah,
Man, of course, I go for like a day or two and they'll let me out. I'm like, okay, we sorry.
yeah,
But the last time they actually got me, I was gone for like almost 3 weeks. Like in
yeah,
a country town. I'm like, this is not me.
uh-huh.
But I'm glad for technology for that aspect of it right now, to be honest about it.
Yeah, and I thank God for a lot of the experiences that I've had. Someone asked me before if I had all this to do over again, would I do stuff differently? And the answer is no. even though a lot of stuff wasn't fun, the addictions wasn't fun, going to jail wasn't fun, all that kind of stuff. But all that made me who I am now. Because if I had not gone through all of that, then I would not be as effective in helping people who are hurting now, the ones who are addicted now, the ones who are in jail or in prison now, the ones who are going through stuff. I'm able to be more effective in helping them because I've been through that. A lot of that I got from my father. My father exposed me to a lot of stuff when I was younger. And then thinking back on some of that stuff, I wonder how did I end up, going through the stuff that I did. I remember one Sunday evening, afternoon, Dr. Martin Luther King was in Chicago. He was preaching at Soldier Field, and my father took me to see him. And I remember then that was when I decided right then that I wanted to be a preacher. When I heard him, I saw him, and I was just mesmerized. Uh, and I said, okay, I want to be a preacher. You know, and I still remember when I was in Detroit. I was assistant. I was 19 then, I think. 19 years old then, and I was assistant pastor of a small church, and my pastor at the time was asked to preach a revival at a white church, a huge white church that used to be a movie theater. They converted it into a church. He couldn't go because of something else was going on, so he sent me. I was preaching, that week. And then I think it was that Thursday night of the revival. I was running late because I missed my bus, and I got to the church, and I walked in. I was walking down the aisle, go to the stage, and then the pastor's son was sitting out there, and he stopped me, and he pointed to his, a finger to his head like it was a gun against his head. And I didn't know what he was talking about because I didn't have time to talk to him. I had to get to the stage. And when I got up there and sat down, and that's when the pastor announced that Dr. King had just been, assassinated, was killed. And that messed me up, and then we stopped for a while. But then I guess that's what he was trying to tell me. Dr. King had been assassinated. And I remember on that bus ride home, I was thinking about when I saw him. My father took me to Soldier Field to see him, and later was when he had came to Chicago, and him and his wife had moved into one of the slum apartments that was around the corner from where I lived, and I remember running down the street with my friends so we tried to see him, but we couldn't see him then because they'd gone in. But all of that, then the thing that really struck me, I was working at Woolworths then. I was assistant manager at Woolworths. Got off work that evening, like 5 something, and everything was normal. Just closed up the store. By the next morning, well, he got killed that night. And the next morning, when I got to the store, they had all kind of pictures on tables selling for $1. And I'm wondering, where did he get all these things from? He man got killed last. He wasn't dead when the store closed up. But now the next morning, they got a table out front with a whole bunch of pictures selling for $1, and that still strikes me as what was that? How did they come up with this that quickly? Again, I'm not saying that they knew something, but I guess they just worked fast at it. I don't know, but
I mean,
I
we're
felt funny about it ever since.
yeah, that is kind of funny. With back in the day with pictures with technology, that would take a long time
Uh-huh.
to do that. I mean, I can understand nowadays. Printers are real fast, but back then that was too quick.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna find out the truth here eventually, man. All this stuff is actually coming out recently.
Yeah.
We're in the age of information. It's just gonna be coming out like all the time.
Yeah.
What happened
Right.
back in the day with certain events.
Yeah. And I thank God that things have changed quite a bit. When I was put over to prison, well, let me go back further. When I started going to church when I was in prison, uh, it was just white churches that were coming in. I mean, I thank God for the white churches that were coming in and stuff. And then I remember one time I asked the other guys, I said, okay, when do the black churches and he said they don't. He said they don't care about us,
Mm.
and so when I, got to be prison, I got put over prison ministry, then that was my thing, I was over prison ministry for the state of Missouri, the Baptist convention, and so I'm going to try to get more black churches involved in prison ministry because most of the people that are in prison were black people. And so that was my aim. I started teaching churches how to do prison ministry, and because at first I got discouraged because I brought it up to a bunch of preachers in a meeting, and then one of the preachers said, "Yeah, I ain't going to no jail, see nobody. They just where they need to be." I got discouraged. My pastor told me, he said, "Man, you got to help them to understand what prison ministry is." Because a lot of them don't understand. And once you help them to understand what it is, then people start coming on board. And that was true. It happened. Now we got a lot of people doing a lot of black churches going in, doing prison ministry. Because now they understand what it is. It's not just going in, singing a couple songs and stuff. Like men and women who are in prison, prison ministry, again, it's just not going in preaching, singing a bunch of songs and stuff. We got to give them hope, and we got to be there for them when they come out. So they won't end up going back when they come out. What they need, give them what they need. They need things. They need help when they come out. They need a job when they come out. They need someplace to stay when they come out. We got to be there and let them know that we there for them. If they mess up again, like slipping or falling in the mud, help them. Don't, like the Bible say, don't holler at them and preach at them and stuff, and tell them to get up. No, you gotta, stick out your hand and help them up. If people need help, that's the main thing. People need help. They need hope, and that's what it was someone who had, I think, a shirt on that said hope dealer. And I like that, instead of a drug dealer, he was a hope dealer. He tried to give people hope. And that's what, I try to give people hope, let them know that, they ain't gotta live like that, which was a whole different story. That they don't have to live like that. There are other things that they can do. And so we got to be there to help them.
So let me ask you this question real quick, Reverend Barr. I know you just do the prison ministries and things like that. Do you actually help other people like on the outside if you want to? Just say for instance, I do know like a few people that might need some assistance. How do I go about reaching you if I want someone to come talk to you about what they're going through?
Give them my phone number.
Okay.
Give them my phone number. Have them to call me. I can give you my phone number right now. Just have them to call me.
I haven't an email, but yeah, I got you. I got it in my phone. But if you want to go ahead and say it out, that's fine if you're down with that.
Yeah, it's 314-363-8679. That's 314-363-8679. Now, if I don't answer when you call, leave a message. Because I don't. A lot of times I don't answer a lot of calls that I don't know who they are. Because so much stuff going on. But just leave me a message, and I'll call it back. Because I get a lot of crazy phone calls from some are scammers and some are people trying to sell stuff and all that. So, I just let the phone ring, and if it's someone legitimate, they'll leave a message, and I get the message, I'll call you back.
Oh man, yeah, that is so true, man. I changed my number like a million times. It just seemed like they find a way to call you.
Yeah, they will. They will. Yeah,
I have
you gotta call.
go back and start writing me letters or something. But hey,
Yeah. So again, it's 314-363-8679. Call me. I will call you back. And I will, I have a lot of people that I work with, who in different areas, so if it's not something that I can do, most of the time I know somebody who can. Uh, and so just call me.
All right, folks, if you want to reach out to him, that's the phone number he just given out a few times. We pretty much are getting close to the end at this time. We got a few other questions for you, sir.
Okay.
So, since you have two of your books, what was the writing process of writing both of these books? Did you do like an outline, or did you basically just start writing?
Just started writing. The hardest thing about writing a book is getting started. Actually, I've written 5. You got 2 listed here. You got the first one and the last one, but I got 3 that were in between. Another one was one was God Still Loves You, and with that's only on Kindle. And The second book was another book was He's Only a Prayer Away. Then the other one was Amazing Grace. The Storm is Passing Over. So those were. But to answer your question, um, I just started writing, and as I'm writing, sometimes I think of something else and I go back and put that in, or sometimes what I do, like on this last book and a couple of others, I list the name of chapters. Okay, I want this chapter. I want a chapter to be titled so and so. Another chapter I want to be titled so and so, and then I go back into each chapter, uh, uh, and like I'm trying to think of one. I think one of the chapters may have been like chump change. No, that was a sermon. That wasn't a chapter in the book. I'm trying to remember. But if I said the name of a chapter, and then I go back and then I start writing in stuff that goes along with that title, and then I go from there. Um, but it's something that you don't want to rush through, and then you can go back and just add to it or take from it, that type of thing. But again, the hardest part of writing a book is getting started.
Well, you pretty much just had to go ahead and just start writing. You can always correct it later on. I
Yeah,
know with books you had to keep going. You had to keep correcting.
you just got to again just get started. And that was the hardest thing for me. Even the latest book, I've been thinking about this book for years, but I thought I was in a writer's cramp or something. And just like in this book, I got certain titles like "In Too Deep" and all those Coke lies.
Mm.
Why Don't You Quit? Uh, uh, Dr. Feelgood. you know, those are some of the chapters that are in that book, and the ones that those chapters indicate different things that I talk about in it. Coke lies is when people will be lying about when they try to get some money from somebody so they can buy some drugs, but they come up with a good lie for it. King Heroin, of course, that talks about heroin addiction. The Queen says cocaine, because they call heroin boy and they call cocaine girl. Uh, Happy Hour, of course, and some others. But I do a title first of a chapter, and then I fill that in. Now that's what works for me. Um, for someone else, it might work a little different.
I mean, it just depends on the style that you want to write your book in. I mean, it's just going to have to just flow the way that
Yeah,
you wanted to write it.
yeah, and sometimes you might get writer's block or something, so you might have to stop for a while. But then you got to don't stay stopped. Try to write something every day, even if it's just one paragraph.
I mean, go from
That's
one sentence, one paragraph, and next thing you know, you
Yeah,
got a book, you got 2 books or several books. It's
yeah.
on you.
Uh-huh.
So we're pretty much getting close to the end right now. I'm gonna talk to you for like a few minutes once we get off the line. Don't hang up once we end the show, Rebel Burton. But what's your final thoughts at this time for the audience?
My final thought is It is like I've been telling everyone, is do well. God blesses you so you can be a blessing to somebody else. Um, what happens oftentimes, one of my former or friends used to say, some people's philosophy is get all you can all you get, and then sit on the can so can't nobody else get none. But that's not the intentions of that. God blesses you so you can be a blessing to somebody else. It's not just monetarily. Sometimes it's knowledge. Sometimes whatever help that they might need. Think back on when you needed something, and someone blessed you. Be a blessing to somebody else because somebody else needs something. So be a blessing to them as well.
Yes, sir. Okay. Oh, yes, sir. That is correct. We are pretty much going to end it on that note. We do appreciate Reverend Burton Barr Jr. for blessing us today on the Ryder's Book Club with Mr. Old School Ryder, which is me, of course. I also stay on the line for me, sir, and he given a phone number earlier, and pretty much replay, guys. Just watch the show over if you can. Other than that, we're over and we out. Y'all have a good day. 1 second, sir.
Okay.